Welcome to the Find Your Exit podcast, where the leading authority on buying, selling, fixing, and growing companies, Seiler Tucker, is dedicated to helping you find the path to retire rich and move on to your next adventure by exiting your business for the desired dream price you deserve. Get ready to find your exit with your host, Seiler Tucker.
Welcome to another episode of Find Your Exit. I'm so excited to have a very good friend of mine and author of Exit Rich, who authored Exit Rich with me. Sharon Lechter is internationally recognized as a financial literacy expert and keynote speaker. She is a New York Times best-selling author, successful entrepreneur, humanitarian, and has enjoyed a 35-year career as a licensed CPA. Sharon co-authored the international bestsellers Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and 14 other books in the Rich Dad series. In 2008, when the economy crashed, she was asked by the Napoleon Hill Foundation to help re-energize the teachings of Napoleon Hill. Her best-selling books with the foundation include 3 Feet from Gold, Outwitting the Devil, Think and Grow Rich for Women, and Success in Something Greater. She's also featured in the movie Think and Grow Rich, the legacy on a national television series, World's Greatest Motivators. Welcome to the show, Sharon.
Thank you, Michelle. Always delighted to be with you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to have you here, especially since we wrote Exit Rich together.
Yes, ready to go.
Ready to go. You have your copy, and I have my copy right back here, and we're wearing our Exit Rich colors.
Yep.
So perfect. So Sharon, tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and how you got involved with the Rich Dad Poor Dad series. And I know you've been a CPA for 35 years. You've had a very successful career. So just share a little bit of your story with our listeners, if you don't mind.
Well, I'll try and give you the Cliff Notes version since I've been around for a long time. But I grew up in a very lower middle class home. I was the first generation to go to college. I lived in a small house between my mom's beauty shop and my dad's used car lot. And we had rental properties that had to scrub out bathrooms between tenants, and we had orange groves. So we were definitely steeped in entrepreneurship. And I swore I would never be an entrepreneur. I wanted to become a sophisticated professional. So I went to college, got my degree in accounting, and started my career in public accounting as a young professional woman, one of the very first hired by one of the big accounting firms at the time in Atlanta. Loved it. It was great. But about the ripe old age, 25, I was working incredible hours. And I said, if I'm going to work like this hard, I should be working for myself, not everybody else. And so at 25, my parents started looking a whole lot smarter. And I had a client invite me to join him in an entrepreneurial endeavor, and I've never looked back. Had the opportunity to do multiple different things. I started a woman's magazine and sold that. And then I met the inventor of the first talking children's book and helped build that into a global brand and sold that. And then that was when we actually moved to Arizona almost 30 years ago. And our oldest son went off to college and came home in credit card debt. He'd had a really good time his first semester. We didn't even know he had credit cards. And
my goodness.
He welcomed at the university, and there was this table, free pizza, free money, free t-shirt, free money. And so he got himself in, he had a really good time his first semester. But when it came home at Christmas time, he was asking us to bail him out. Probably one of the few really good parenting decisions we made because we wouldn't bail him out. But that was December of 1992. And that's when I dedicated the rest of my career to financial literacy, financial education, and entrepreneurial support. And fast forward a few years, I've been working with the school districts, and my husband called me. Mike's an intellectual property attorney, and he had this guy come in with this idea for a board game. And so I met Robert Kiyosaki at a beta test for the game, which I helped him formalize. And in that process, he asked me to be his partner. And I said, well, if you're going to charge, he wanted to charge $200 for a board game. We're talking 1996. I said, that's kind of pricey. Maybe we should write a brochure that explains the philosophy of the board game. And that brochure was Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Wow.
They don't realize that we never expected Rich Dad, Poor Dad to take a life of its own.
Wow. I never heard it put that way because I read Rich Dad Poor Dad. I don't remember what year, but I've read it several times, and I recommend everyone to read that book. But I had no idea that it started as a brochure for the board game. I thought the board game came after the book.
No, the board game was first. The name of our company was Cashflow Technologies, but the world said, no, your brand is Rich Dad. So that started a 10-year partnership where we were partners in the company, and we wrote 15 books together, ended up going around the world in 100 different countries, over 50 languages. It kind of took the world by storm. And that was even before Amazon. So
Wow.
it was quite the right message at the right time. And in 2007, we were no longer aligned. I made the decision to leave because I didn't agree with some of the decisions he was making in the business. Sometimes you just have to close one door for other doors of opportunity to open. And I share that with people because I challenge people watching and listening to take stock in your life or the doors you need to close, because I didn't know what was ahead of me. I thought Rich Dad was my legacy, but there was more for me to do. And so a few months later, I got as you mentioned, the economy, 2008, 2009, I got a call from President Bush. So I had the pleasure of serving on a financial advisor, the President's Advisory Council for Financial Literacy for both President Bush and President Obama. And during that time is when I also got the call from the Napoleon Hill Foundation asking me to step in to help reinvigorate the teachings of Napoleon Hill. Now, I'd read Think and Grow Rich when I was 19, didn't realize the impact it had on me until I was in my 30s.
I did not realize you were 19 when you wrote that. That's something else I didn't know.
But I was just absolutely blown away. And I wouldn't have gotten the call from the president. I wouldn't have gotten the call from Napoleon Hill had I still been at Rich Dad. So it's really important to make sure you close doors that need to be closed so that you have new opportunities available to you.
And so that's what this show is about, finding your exit. And you can find your exits in so many different ways. It's not always just transitioning or selling a business. It's, leaving your corporate job as you had as a CPA, and then you sold 2 businesses, and then you left Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and then went to Napoleon Hill Foundation. So it's all about finding your exit, no matter what way you find it. But when one door closes, another one opens.
That's exactly right. And obviously, one of the reasons we wrote the book is so people could think about preparing the best value in your business before you exit.
That's right.
Not waiting until you want to sell to try and clean everything up, but try and build it along the way, right?
Well, that's the most important thing because, there's 30.2 million businesses in the United States, and at any given time, 40% are up for sale, but 90% of them will never sell. And the business landscape has changed dramatically to where it used to be 95% of startups will go out of business in the first 5 years. Well, now it's 70% of businesses will go out of business after being in business 10 years. Mm-hmm. So I think Exit Rich is perfect timing right now to whether you're trying to sell a business or not. It's all about growing a scalable business that is sellable when you're ready.
Right. And that's exactly how I explain it, Michelle, because the Exit Rich part is also the ability to have a business that is scalable and can generate generational wealth. And that's something that too many people still work too much in their business. Yeah. They're not creating the systems or bringing in the people to run it for them.
Right.
And Exit Rich can also be freeing up your time, still owning the business and let it run on its own, but you end up having the opportunity to have more free time. And I think that's the glory of having a successful business.
Right. And it is so many business owners, I call entrepreneurs firefighters because they're so busy putting out fires every day in their business, and they get caught working in the business rather than working on it. So Exit Rich is just packed with great strategies and techniques and tools to help business owners create a business that works for them rather than them working for it.
I think it's also important to mention that the fact that the two of us working together gives the reader insights into every aspect, because of course you've helped hundreds of businesses prepare and sell successfully. And I, from a mentoring perspective, helping mentor businesses to grow as well as an investor, the process that I go through in determining companies I'm going to invest in. So the book has such a depth of experience from your perspective as well as experience from mine that I'm very proud of what we created together. It's good.
Me too. And I'm so fortunate to have you writing Exit Rich with me. Why don't you share with the listeners about the Mentor's Corner and how valuable your advice is there?
Well, when we originally started talking about this, I said, how can we best do that? And so at the end of each chapter, we have a section from mentor's perspective. And that's the part that I've written, as well as supporting some of the content along the way. But looking at the importance of the tactical side, which you talk about, the depth of content, and then looking at as to why it's so important, both from a mentor's perspective as well as from a potential investor or buyer's perspective. And so much related to money and business is mindset. Right. And people that have been so busy and they love their baby, they can't kind of get away from the fact that they love the baby. Right. And so it's important to have them step outside and see it through someone else's eyes. So from a broker's perspective, as well as me as a potential buyer, investor, and mentor, helps people open their understanding of how important it is to really follow the advice in the book.
That brings me to my favorite quote, a quote that I came up with a long time ago, that you can't read the label from the inside of a bottle. You need an outsider's perspective to alert you of the danger zone, to keep you out of the danger zone. Because when you're in your fog, it's foggy, right?
Right. That's right. You don't know what you don't know. There was a quote a couple of months ago that I heard that I love. It says, smart people learn from their mistakes. Geniuses learn from other people's mistakes.
Exactly. I've heard that quote many times. Who said that quote? I don't remember who said that quote, but I love it.
But I sure love it. And so, from a business owner's perspective, the proof is in. When you have a mentor, you're more profitable and you make more money than if you don't have a mentor. And that's because you're bringing in the expertise of someone who's been there, done that. And they can help steer you around the pitfalls and also speed your way to success through introductions and associations. And that's really what Exit Rich does. It has you go through the process of examining where you are and cleaning those things up and adding value and being able to, position yourself. It's all about positioning. If you want to sell your business, you want to make sure you've positioned yourself in the best light possible.
Right. And you'd be surprised how many business owners don't do that. They don't really think about those things until they never really think about their exit until they want to sell, because a catastrophic internal or external catastrophic event has occurred. And then the business is trending downward. And now all of a sudden they want to sell the business for $10 million because that's what they need to live on for the rest of their life. But the business is not worth $10 million. So Exit Rich is really a step-by-step blueprint to walk you through that process and help you plan your exit for your desired price tag on your time frame with your terms.
That's right. And so many times, I'm sure you've seen this as well, even more so than I have. When I'm mentoring clients or if I'm in my own company, when you're positioning yourself and you're ready to sell, there's so much cleanup that you have to do because you haven't done it correctly along the way. The agreements may not be executed. The agreements you may not have the right types of agreements with independent contractors. That's the kind of thing that the Exit Rich walks you through, so you can handle it along the way and make sure, because you can't have a strong house without a foundation that goes deep.
That's right.
The same thing with a business. You got to make sure the foundation is there so that you attract the highest price.
And you'd be surprised because a lot of people think, well, that's just small businesses that haven't built a solid foundation. But that's not true. I mean, we're working with $50, $60, $70 million companies right now, and they have independent contractors working in warehouses. They have independent contractors doing manual labor. They don't have workers' comp on them. You have one injury, it can put you out of business. You have a catastrophic event occur with that one 1099, that could put you out of business. But yeah, we're working so many.
The flip side of that is if it's an independent contractor and they're doing something in their area of expertise, you don't own it unless you have a work for hire agreement with them. And so this is a perfect example of what we just did right now, two different perspectives on the same issue. And so workman's comp, as well as understanding that what you think you own what you pay for, it's not the case unless you have those written agreements that are based on work for hire. So
I see a sequel in our future.
Yeah.
And what's really good about Exit Rich too is you bought some of Michael's perspective, who is an intellectual attorney, and you know, I always say the more IP you have, that's a value driver. The higher multiple and the more buyers your business will attract. So there's some good insight there too about Michael and his core competencies.
Well, because the intellectual property side of it is intangible. And so it's something that you really have to pay attention to. For instance, our Fortune 500 companies 35 years ago, 85% of their value was in bricks and mortar, 15% intangible. Today, that's more than flipped. Today, Fortune 500 companies are probably 87% intangible and maybe 13% tangible. And that's a huge change. It kind of levels the playing field from a competition perspective. Mm-hmm. But those intangible assets are not on the books.
Right.
So when you're going to sell, you need to really gather all of your intellectual property. You need to identify it. You need to protect it. And then it allows you to leverage it, which means multiple streams of income. And that's such a very important area in the world today. And most business owners don't really think about their intellectual property, and they're missing out on double, tripling, quadrupling their valuation, or possibly setting up competitors because they haven't protected it properly.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's why I always say they really need to align themselves with a specialist, with a mergers and acquisitions specialist, to help walk them through that process, because a good M&A advisor also has buyers looking to purchase those synergies. And you have to make sure your patents are protected. You got to make sure your contracts are transferable. You got to make sure, like Sharon said, you got to make sure you protect your IP, you trademark your name. I can't even begin to tell you how many times companies have lost tremendous money because they're in court fighting that intellectual property law about their trade name.
All the time.
All the time. Yeah.
And people say, well, protecting my intellectual property is so expensive. I can't afford an attorney. Well, you can't afford not to, because it's going to cost you 10 to 100 times more later when you're trying to fight to get it back.
It can put you out of business. I mean, some companies just don't have the working capital to be able to weather that financial storm in court. So it can literally put you out of business. So you can't afford not to. And that's what we say. It's not what you know that's going to get you in trouble. It's what you don't know.
That's right. And making sure you have the right. I mean, one of the other things that you stress in the book, and I totally agree, is the importance of your people, right? And knowing that you've got to make sure, if you're trying to sell your business, understanding the people that are essential to the business, making sure what they're doing is documented through business systems. Mm-hmm. And then, really making sure a lot of owners are concerned about taking care of them. You can take care of them in the sales process by making sure the provisions are there to protect them. So.
Right. And that's one of the first P's, and the 6 P's is people. And you call it systems. I call it processes for the second P. But, that's one of the biggest issues in transitioning a business to the new owner, is making sure that you have those appointment contracts, that you have those non-competes, because a lot of buyers will require non-competes from their higher up team, from their management team. I closed on an $18 million transaction, and during due diligence, I learned that the CPA, the on-site CPA, was actually embezzling money from the company. And then when we found out and fired the CPA, guess what the CPA did? She took all the employee records. So here I am running around like a chicken with my head cut off the day of closing, trying to get all the employee handbooks signed, all the non-compete signed, all the employee contracts signed that day, because she took them. So always have backup too.
Mm-hmm. Yes. That's so true. And that is, it's one of those internal controls that accountants like to talk about, but everybody else tends to nod off. They truly are important, because those internal controls make sure the cash is handled appropriately, make sure the records are handled appropriately, so someone can't do what that CPA did. And it happens all the time. It
does. I mean, I would tell you, gosh, I have sold over 500 businesses myself, but my company has sold way over 1,000. And I can't begin to tell you how many embezzlements we have witnessed and what we've seen, and some we've caught ourselves. So you really have to put those internal controls and not off.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
It is important. And most people feel like kind of like almost like that's an extra expense that they can cut out, right? And it is so not, because human nature, if it's loose, you're going to end up having a problem. And so if you make the procedures, just like your processes, my systems, outline so that those internal controls are part of the processes and systems, it becomes a habit. And but that cross verification and double checking prevents a lot of problems.
Right. And I always say the devil's in the details. And that's the biggest thing. You really got to create a solid foundation and run it on all 6 Ps, the people, the processes. And you can't, it's just like trademarking and protecting your proprietary, your IP. You can't afford not to. You can't afford not to align yourself with a great CPA, with a great attorney. It will save your company a tremendous amount of money, save you from going out of business, actually.
And when I talk about my husband are intellectual property attorneys, they're the kinds the attorneys that build value in your company, right? They are the ones that help you find ways to protect your intellectual property and expand your intangible assets. So they're the good guys attorneys.
Yeah, that's who you need to align with, the good guys, the ones that build your business.
That's right.
Necessarily tear your business apart or, charge you high fees without really doing anything to help you grow.
Right. It's better to set it up so you have the good guy attorneys helping you build your business rather than waiting until you get into trouble and then you're paying ungodly amounts of money for trying to clean up messes that could have been prevented.
Well, we say the same thing during closing. We work with the good guys. We work with a team of CPAs and attorneys. They're licensed attorneys and licensed CPAs, and we've been working with them for 20 years. They've probably been in business for about 60 years. And same thing, I always tell my clients, if you don't have the right team, number one, this deal is not going to close. Number two, you're not going to be protected.
That's right.
Oh, and you want to find attorneys that are deal makers, not deal breakers.
That's right. It's the same thing. I talk to people about real estate. They go, "Oh, I'm going to try and get the commission down." I said, "Well, if you're an investor and you want to buy good deals, do you think they're going to bring you the good deals if you try and cut them down?" No, I'm okay with paying both brokers what they're supposed to, because that means they're going to call me first when a good deal comes. And so, it's really important to make sure you've got the right people on your team and you understand the value that they're adding, because more than likely, in most cases, whatever you're paying them you're going to get back, double or more from the purchase price, because we're going to be in good shape.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so, Sharon, tell us a little bit more about you and all the things that you've accomplished during your life. You've lived quite the life, and you've got a bunch of stuff ahead of you. Tell us a little bit more about what you've accomplished and what's on your plate. What's next for Sharon Lechter?
Well, I kind of shared the story. Right now I'm doing a lot of speaking, and of course, a lot of it's virtual, but I'm looking forward to the book. We haven't mentioned yet that Inc. magazine picked it up under their imprint, which is very exciting. So we're looking forward to the release date of that. And
also Forbes.
Yeah, and Steve Forbes gave us a wonderful endorsement. And he's just a wonderful man. I'm very proud of that. But Inc. will be in Inc. magazine promoting that as well. And we have so many incredible people that endorse the book for us. So that'll be a lot of energy and time getting this book out there and promoting it. And I have my online courses that I'm doing a lot of work on right now that talk about money mastery and then the Play Big movement, playing a bigger game. Too many people play too small. They need to play a bigger game. So I support that. I do a lot of one-on-one mentoring. And then in the book 3 Feet from Gold, we released the success equation. And so if you go to successequation.com, you can see the download that I have for helping people really determine their own success pattern, combining your passion and your talent, which is what school teaches us in our experience. And most of us stop there because we have to do it on our own. And what you and I have just talked about is the next element is times association, that power of association. Mm-hmm. This book is very strong because you and I came together to use both of our experience and expertise to give it a more impact than if one of us had written it on our own.
Right.
Power of association, and then taking the right action, and then having faith in yourself. And in today's world, I think that power of association and that faith are the two areas that I find need the most work when I'm taking on new clients. So,
wow. I also, in addition to selling businesses, I buy businesses and I flip them. I also partner with business owners, and especially if it's if it's in an industry that has a niche, and I'm passionate about it, and the owners are still fired up about the business, and they're still really passionate. That's the 7th P, passion. But if they're really passionate about it, I'll partner with business owners. And I find that the hardest thing when I do that is growing the business past the owner. You cannot grow the business past the owner. You have to grow the owner in which to grow the business. Does that make sense?
absolutely. Absolutely.
And that's the biggest challenge. And that's why I'm really picky now who I partner with.
Well, sometimes, and I would probably say this is probably true for you in those cases, you see a bigger vision for the company than they do. And so you have to get them to expand their vision for what's possible. And that happens so many times because people they just don't play big enough. They don't have a big enough goal. And then they've gotten to a point where they're comfortable. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And being comfortable is not a good place to be, because when you're comfortable, you get complacent. And so there is you have to, and we end up having a crisis and we get thrown into, chaos. You have to get curious again. And it's when you get curious that you start becoming creative and expanding and stepping outside of your comfort zone. And so
I always tell people, get comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly.
I always say that. And I think one of the bigger problems I see is, yes, they have a big vision, but they're still stuck in doing things the small business way. So the way that you did business at $1 million company is not the same way you're going to do business at a $10 million company.
That's right. You
can't do things the same way. You have to hire people with greater competencies and smarter than you in those areas that are not your strengths. So you have to hire your weaknesses. And a lot of times these entrepreneurs are stuck in doing things the old way, and they don't want to let go of control. You have to let go of control in order to grow.
That's true.
And so that's why I keep trying to grow my owners. I've even taken them to a Tony Robbins conference and given them books to read, because I figure, the business is not going to grow beyond what they will grow.
Well, and a lot of it is that feeling of pride and micromanagement that happens when somebody starts something from zero and grows it to a large company. They do have a hard time letting go of the reins. And many times they've had mentors, and the issue, many times they have to realize that the mentor who got them to where they are today may not be the right mentor to get them to the next level.
Right.
You have to make sure you have the right people on your team.
Right. And I always tell, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Just make sure you have mentors who have experience in that bigger pond. You're jumping into a bigger lake, and you need to make sure you got mentors who know that lake. So.
Right. Yeah. I always tell my clients, if you're going to hire mentors, make sure you're hiring mentors in that wheelhouse or that core competency that you're looking for, that you need to expand. Like, for instance, if you need to expand in creating educational products and memberships and marketing, don't get a mentor that's never done that before. Get somebody that does that every single day.
Exactly.
Yeah. So Sharon, you've been so successful, wildly successful. I just can't help but know what you were like as a little girl.
Well, I used to ask my parents, what did you do? I'd like to bottle whatever you did with me, because I've always been driven. I've always been one that worked hard. Never didn't need to be prodded, almost to an insane level. I've had to learn how to have fun. But I think as a little girl, I was always, I had red hair and freckles. And so I always felt different and never quite good enough. So I had to work really hard. And so in order to get past that, I really excelled in school because I felt really bad on my appearance. And so it's something that has stuck with me, and I recognize it in other people. That feeling of I'm not quite pretty enough, I'm not good enough, I'm not an expert. And I've seen that such a barrier for people to get past their own limiting beliefs to create success in their lives. And so that's really I've dedicated my life to not just on the financial side, but also on that self-confidence side. And growing up, my dad would ask me every night, Sharon, have you added value to someone's life today? So I get asked all the time, why are you still doing this? And it's really because of that. I thought about retiring a few years ago.
I'm glad you didn't.
But I got a lot of pushback, and it was like, okay, there's more for me to do. And I still, I can't imagine just sitting and watching TV and retiring. So I made the decision to refire, and that's when I launched the Play Big movement, which is a Facebook group. And it was sharing the things that I'm doing now to play a bigger game as well, so other people can learn what I'm doing and what others in the group are doing. And it's been a lot of fun. Once I made that decision to play big again, all kinds of opportunities came my way. So a lot of times we put our own blinders on in life. And when you make the decision to get rid of the blinders, it's amazing the opportunities that are right there in front of you.
Wow. And I love that advice because I have a 9-year-old daughter. So I think I'm going to start asking her, what value did you do or did you add to someone's life? What a great question as a parent.
I still ask myself that at night. My dad's been gone for 14 years, but have you added value to someone's life today? Wouldn't the world be a better place if everybody concentrated on helping others? So.
It absolutely would be. Absolutely. I'm going to start asking her that question every night. So you had some great role models growing up.
Yes.
Wonderful. Yeah. Now you've had some exits along the way. So tell us about that. Did you plan your exit? Did somebody just come to you and make you an offer on, because I think you said you had 2 businesses you had 2 businesses before, right? That you sold?
Well, multiple. I've had several. The woman's magazine, I started with 2 friends, and we ended up selling that to one of the partners, and then she went ahead and sold it to Working Woman magazine. That was in Wisconsin. And that was something that we planned. We planned to get it up and running, and then or at least I did. I planned to help the foundational development growth and then sell it. And then shortly thereafter is when I met, actually it was a dear friend of mine who started the talking book industry. And when I helped him grow that and finance it internally. And that's when I learned the importance of licensing intellectual property. We had a new technology, first time kids had anything electronic in their hands. And so how could we get parents to trust us? So we aligned with Disney, Warner Brothers, Sesame Street, Marvel Comics, and it exploded from 1 to 9 to 23 to 50 million in sales.
Wow.
Halfway through the 50 million year, we realized we were going to have to go find some pretty big financing to help us take us to the next level. And it had been a privately held company. And so at that point in time, we started having we had 5 or 6 of the major toy companies coming to us. Wow. So we went through due diligence with all of them. It was incredibly stressful, but we had a bidding war on the company. And so it was an incredibly fantastic experience on understanding the process of due diligence and working with each and seeing how it wasn't exactly the same. Each company was looking at different things. So, and the company itself had been in the sheet music business. So we literally had to divide the company into 2 companies before we went through the due diligence process. So it was tremendous learning and experience. And that we ended up selling that company. And then that's when we moved back to Arizona, or down here to Arizona. And then building the Rich Dad organization, when I made the decision to leave Rich Dad, it was an interesting process. It was very amicable until the valuation of the company came in. And then we ended up in litigation for a year. So that process of the due diligence was a little more stressful, a little more in depth, but that's the process from me from a personal perspective. But I've also mentored dozens of clients on the process of getting their business ready for sale, increasing their valuations, and identifying those potential buyers, and then helping them get through that due diligence process, as well as the multiple companies that my husband and I have investments in, where we do that due diligence on our own personal behalf.
So that brings us back to Exit Rich, because it's look, you mentioned bidding war, and I go through a lot of bidding wars. And you're right, every buyer has a different set of criteria, a different set of due diligence, a different set of synergies that they're buying. Mm-hmm. And it really depends upon what that one buyer is buying. I would assume you had a good team on your side helping you through that process.
Always. And depending on the industry, I always find somebody, an expert in the industry, to come in to provide consulting to make sure we're not forgetting something. Because if we have, sometimes it's worse to have a little bit of knowledge of an industry than none, because you make assumptions. So when I'm working with a client, I always make sure we bring in somebody that I would consider an industry expert, just to review what we're doing and give us insights that maybe we haven't thought of.
Right. So you're not selling the business, you're providing the mentorship for the owner in that process.
You're the broker.
Yes, the M&A advisor. I was quite happy when I was awarded the title of Mergers and Acquisitions Master Intermediary, because that's something that you can't go and take a test for. Mm-hmm. You can't take a class for. You can only get that title by doing deals over $10 million in a certain period of time. I think you have to do like 6 deals or something over $10 million, which is good, because that separates the doers, from somebody who,
establishes your level. Establishes your level of expertise.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. So due diligence, I say the devil's in the details, and due diligence is where most deals fall apart, which is why we always have backup buyers. We never stop marketing. We always have backup buyers.
I think that's the importance of what we outline in the book, because we talk about the steps to prepare yourself for selling your business. And it's not just the sales process. This is fundamentally how to build the strength and the foundation of your business. So even if there's a business owner out there that's not looking to sell, this book will help you make sure that you've fundamentally built your business to not just be successful, but to be sustainable and scalable.
Right.
So it's really an excellent tool for you to go through and say, check, oops, I better do this. Check, oh, I better do this. So it's a great roadmap to creating sustainability and scalability.
And profitability, because, I always say lack of profits is never the problem. It's always a symptom of not operating on one of the 6 Ps, or one of the other 5 Ps. For instance, if you don't have the right people in place, you can lose profits, right? Mm-hmm. If your processes are not efficient, productive, well documented, you can lose profits. If you're in court fighting for your trademark, you can lose profits. We have a manufacturing company we're selling, a plastics manufacturing company, and they've been in business for decades. And the problem is their employees have been there as long as they have been. And they keep raising them and raising them and raising them, but they're in a very competitive industry that sells plastic. Mm-hmm. Very tight margins. Those margins do not support that overhead. Therefore, they have a lack of profits. So the book just walks you through all of those steps of how to grow your business, whether you want to sell it or not, so it's scalable and profitable, most importantly. I can't wait for the launch. I'm so excited, Sharon.
I know. And we keep saying it's 6 Ps, so maybe we should tell everybody what they are. People, product, process, proprietary, which means intellectual property is part of that, patrons, and profits. And so all of those come together, and you need to really make sure that they work together to create maximum valuation and really sustainability.
Yeah, and it's wonderful to see how Sharon and I talk about people. I talk about it in my experience, me being in the trenches, and then Sharon has her own case studies and her own expertise. So it's great to get both sides, both of our perspectives.
Yep. Our perspectives are coming from different mindsets, right. But they rhyme.
They do indeed. So the book is coming out. We should go ahead and talk about the special that we are offering, Sharon. Obviously because of COVID, we've had to push our book launch back a couple of times. So the book is now going to launch in January 26th. However, our listeners can take advantage of this book right now. They can go to exitbookrich.com, purchase a book for $24.79, receive a digital download immediately, plus obtain all the bonuses, which are videos, downloads. We have examples, Sharon, of employee handbooks, operational manuals, organizational charts, due diligence checklist, LOIs, example PAs, example data rooms and how you manage a data room, of a $50 million company. So they get all of that, plus they get a 30-day membership into Club CEOs. And Club CEOs is going to be hot seats and Q&As, and we'll bring in other expertise to help grow your business in Club CEOs. And they get all of this for $24.79.
But I want to point out how unusual this is. And it's something because we know that it's been delayed because of COVID. The book will still, your copy of the book will still be sent to you in January. But because you make a commitment through exitrichbook.com today, then you will also receive a digital copy now. So
right.
You have really an advanced copy of what's going to be released in January. So you have a head start over everyone else who's going to need to get it through Amazon or through a bookstore in January. And that's from making that commitment. Now you have access to this information immediately. And that's very unusual in publishing today. But we wanted to make sure we didn't hold the information back any longer. So we wanted to get it to you.
And like many of our business owners, we have to pivot with what's going on. You have to pivot, with what's going on with COVID. You just can't keep doing things the same way. So there's a tremendous amount of wealth of information, not only in just the book Exit Rich, but also in all the golden nuggets that are provided in your book membership and also Club CEOs. And then plus, Sharon, I know if they do...
Lots of great bonuses, yep.
Right, and then I know if they buy more than 2 books, go to exitrichbook.com, because if you buy more than 2 books, we have all kinds of value that we're also giving away, like Sharon's Mastermind. And, my Build to Sell platform, we have a Build to Sell educational platform that they will also get. Also an evaluation from me, which is a $10,000 value. So there's all kinds of bonuses if you buy more than 2 books. Maybe you buy them for your friends, for other business owners, you donate them as well. And then I think there's even a retreat at Sharon's Ranch.
There is. There is. If you, I can't remember the number of copies, but yes, for those people who invest in it to share it with their clients and their friends, we wanted to make sure that we really showed our appreciation. And so Michelle has her business valuation, and I'm offering a retreat for our ranch. So.
Yeah, that's something I want. It's a ranch retreat. So
yeah,
Sharon.
You can check it out at cherrycreeklodge.com. Completely off the grid. We have all solar power, well water. We have fishing, horseback riding, shooting, all kinds of fun things.
We do have Wi-Fi though, right?
Yes, we do have Wi-Fi. We have satellite Wi-Fi. So
you made me nervous there for a minute.
Cell phones are a bit spotty, but we do have satellite Wi-Fi. Yep.
I think it's good to sometimes unplug though and get away from the phone and the digital world.
This is a little piece of heaven. It's totally off the grid, completely remote in the middle of the Tonto National Forest. It's 3 hours outside Phoenix, and it's just a little piece of heaven.
Yeah, I think it's great to just do some soul searching and what I call transformational thinking, because we're always transactional. Sometimes you need to just sit quiet and do that transformational thinking, and that can really catapult your business to the next level.
Yes, it can. Very important.
So Sharon, what's the number one tip that you have for our listeners, for business owners, for entrepreneurs? What's the number one tip? What's the biggest piece of advice you can give to them?
Well, one of my normal comments is that you are the CEO of your own life. And so do you want to continue working in your business, driving yourself crazy, not having time to take off, not enjoying life? Or do you want to be in charge of your life and your business and making sure you build the foundational level of your business so that you can bring in other people's money, other people's time, other people's resources to run your business that eventually will allow you to free up your time? And that's the decision is yours. You either work on your business and build the systems and the people to run it for you, or you have a lifetime of working in your business and exchanging time for money. I go, instead of exchanging time for money, invest your time to build the foundation of your business so that it can become an economic engine for you.
Great advice. Great advice. And any tips from a personal standpoint, like how do you keep yourself motivated? How do you keep yourself going? What personal tip do you have for our listeners?
Well, I think it comes back to what your definiteness of purpose is, your burning desire, whether it be in your business or your personal life. When you remind yourself of that, successful businesses do one of two things. They solve a problem or serve a need. Simple as that. And so in the morning when I wake up and I feel like I want to just pull the covers over my head and roll over, I remind myself of what problem I'm serving and what need I'm serving. And it takes it outside of me. It gives me that motivation to get out of bed because I know that I am adding value to someone's life. So remind yourself every morning, what problem are you solving? What need are you serving? And then at the end of the day, be grateful for what you've accomplished that day and have a little time of gratitude for where you are in life. And ask yourself, have you added value to someone's life? That's my personal recommendation. It's worked for me.
I love that. And I definitely, every night before I put my 9-year-old to bed and we say our prayers, I tell her to thank God. What are you thankful for today? What did God do for you today? Now I'm going to say, what did you do for others? So I think that is wonderful advice. Anything that you would like to share with our listeners?
Well, just please reach out to me, Sharon Lechter, on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. I have my website is sharonlechter.com. So everything's pretty easy. And if you have any questions, you want to reach out to me, my email is info@sharonlechter.com. I have my podcast, which is the Play Big Movement with Sharon Lechter, and as well as the Facebook group, the Play Big Movement. So you can pretty much find me a lot of places and love to have you join me. And if you want the personal success download, it's personalsuccessequation.com.
And I always say the more successful someone is, the more they give, the more time they have to give, the more the more time they have to give to others and help others be successful. So thank you, Sharon, so much for being. I think I was on your podcast, right? I believe I was.
We were just talking a few days ago. We need to do another one now. Now that we have the advanced copy, we need to do another one now that we were a little closer to launch. So
wonderful. Thank you so much, Sharon. Thank you for sharing all your wonderful words of wisdom. And thanks to our listeners for joining us on another episode of Find Your Exit. So again, all the information about Sharon will be at findyoureexit.com. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to the Find Your Exit podcast. Don't forget to check out Michelle Seiler Tucker's Build to Sell Blueprint books and Exit Rich, along with more blogs, videos, and resources at findyoureexit.org. Be sure to connect with Michelle on Facebook or LinkedIn and stay tuned for her next episode by subscribing in your favorite podcast player.